Welcome to Behavioral Psychology, where we dive into the stories behind our thoughts, actions, and emotions. Have you ever been the smart kid, the one everyone praised? The one who seemed to have it all figured out? But now, as an adult, you can't help but feel lost, disconnected, or unsure of your next step? Today, we're uncovering why that happens and how the very thing that made you feel special growing up could be the one thing holding you back now. So, let's take a journey together and explore how we can let go of old identities, embrace growth, and find real connection again. Stay with us. It's time to understand what's been keeping you stuck and how to break free. Once the smart kid, why do you feel so lost now? Part 1. The beginning, the kid who was called gifted. When you were little, maybe you were just like me. You were the kid who could read before first grade. The one who was always at the top of the class. The one teachers would say, is going to do something big. You didn't need to study too hard. But you always got good grades. Adults constantly praised you. You're so smart. Wow, you're amazing. And you got used to that admiration. At first, it felt great. You were liked, complimented, and life seemed easier than it did for others. But then, time passed. You grew up, and you started feeling strange. No one was praising you anymore. No one was telling you that you were special. You stepped into adulthood with an unnameable emptiness. People seemed to be living their lives, connecting, growing, and being happy. And you felt lost, alone, directionless. It wasn't because you weren't smart anymore. It was because you had built your entire identity around a label, and that label was starting to crumble. Part 2. The identity of the smart kid, a sweet prison. When you were young, things were simpler. A kid could define themselves by a small thing. I'm the one who loves Pokemon. Or, I like fried chicken. But when people started calling you the smart one, you began to believe it. Then everyone around you started confirming it. Teachers, parents, friends, everyone repeated that you were brilliant, outstanding, destined for success. At first, it felt amazing. You were praised, celebrated, and everything was easy. But behind those compliments was a dangerous trap. You were praised for the results, not for the effort. You were applauded for getting things right the first time, not for failing 10 times before finally figuring it out. You learned a subtle, but very wrong, lesson. If I'm truly smart, everything should come easily. Part 3. Growing up. How gifted kids fall into the dark zone. Then you grew up. And for the first time in your life, you faced real challenges. Lessons that were too difficult. Jobs that didn't meet your expectations. Relationships that didn't go as planned, and you didn't know how to respond. You weren't used to failure. You weren't used to feeling not good enough. Things were no longer easy. And you started wondering, wasn't I smart? Why am I struggling so much? Instead of confronting this, you avoided it. You didn't participate in difficult courses. You didn't sign up for extracurricular activities because you were afraid of not doing well. You didn't dare try new things, because if you failed, it meant you weren't smart anymore. So, you withdrew, stayed in your comfort zone. You stuck to doing things you knew you could excel at. Meanwhile, others took risks, made mistakes, and grew, but you stayed still. Part 4. Stories you'll see yourself in. Mark's story. The top student who's now unemployed. Mark was once the pride of the school, valedictorian, got a scholarship to study abroad, returned home with an excellent degree. But then, Mark turned down every less than perfect opportunity. He applied to top companies, but his interviews never succeeded. When no one was chasing after him anymore, Mark started to panic. But instead of accepting a regular job to start from the bottom, Mark refused, because it would make him look like a failure. Year after year, he lived off his family, lost his motivation, and blamed himself every day. Kylie's story, the smart girl who was always alone. Kylie was the type of person who always aced her classes, always ranked first, but she never participated in group activities, never had close friends. She didn't know how to open up, how to apologize, how to be vulnerable. Every time her friends gathered, Kylie would find an excuse to avoid them. She lived with assumptions. They don't get me. I don't need them. Then one day, she realized she had been alone for many years, with no one to turn to when she was exhausted. Part 5. Connecting is the journey of presence, not intelligence. You can understand other people's feelings. You even know how to talk to get people to like you. But you don't truly connect. You're performing, analyzing, calculating your words. You don't live authentically, you're taking a social test. And that wears you down, because you're not being yourself. You think you need to be good at connecting to actually connect. But real connection doesn't require perfection. It requires you to be present, be authentic, not calculating. But in order to do that, you need to let go of the identity of, I'm the smart one. You need to accept that your value doesn't come from always being right, but from being willing to live honestly. Part 6. The final trap, defensive arrogance. When the loneliness becomes too heavy to bear, you start building walls, and those walls are built with phrases like, I'm not like them. I'm too deep for shallow conversations. No one really understands me. You don't truly believe those things, but you say them to avoid the pain, to avoid admitting that you're craving someone to hug you and say, everything will be okay. That arrogance isn't because you think you're better than others, it's because you're afraid of getting hurt. And it's slowly killing your ability to connect. Part 7. The escape, the journey to rediscover normalcy. The first thing you need to do, let go of the label, I'm the smart one. Not because being smart is bad, but because clinging to it is dangerous. When your self-worth is tied to being brilliant, you'll avoid effort, avoid challenges, avoid growth. You need to rebuild a new identity. Not, I'm the best, but I'm the one willing to learn. Not, I can't fail, but I'm allowed to fail and learn from it. Not, I always have to be right, but I want to live authentically, even if I'm wrong. Part 8. The final lesson. You don't need to be special to be loved. You don't have to be the smartest kid in the room to stay in the room. You just need to show up, be real, and be truly present. You don't need to impress anyone. You just need to connect. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to be here. And then, from those first awkward steps, you'll begin to feel something very familiar that you've forgotten for a long time: the warmth of true connection. Not because you're brilliant, not because you're worthy of praise, but because you dared to step down from your lonely pedestal and live authentically among others who are struggling, just like you. If you see yourself in these words, remember this: you are not alone. There are thousands of people like you, once the smart kid, now on a journey to rediscover themselves. And this journey doesn't require you to be brilliant, it only requires you to begin. Thanks for watching until the end. If you found today's content valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any deep dive psychological insights in future videos. See you in the next episode of Behavioral Psychology, where we uncover how the human mind works, logically and emotionally.